Hello, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in this webinar series. Today, I'll be giving a practical overview on Melon necrotic spot virus, or MNSV. And MNSV is not always the first virus people think of in cucurbits, but it deserves attention because it can affect important cucurbit crops, and it might be introduced in ways that are easy to miss, and it can be difficult to identify. So over the next few minutes, I'll be covering why it matters, how it spreads, what symptoms should raise suspicion, how it is diagnosed, and the management priorities that are most useful in the field. So MNSV belongs to the genus Gamma carmovirus and the family Tombusviridae. Important cucurbit crops include melon, cucumber, and watermelon. This virus matters because infection can reduce both marketable yield and fruit quality. It also stands out because it does not fit in this pattern of an insect vector virus that spreads only above ground. MNSV can be associated with infected seed, contaminated production system, and a soil-associated fungal vector. So effective management starts with thinking carefully about how the pathogen gets introduced and maintained. So MNSV was first identified in US in the late 70s with initial reports originating from melon production systems in California. And since its description, it has been regarded as present but sporadic. So it's not common everywhere, it's not present every season or in every crop, but it means that MNSV should be considered when compatible symptoms appear in cucurbit fields or in transplant houses or protected production. So the practical takeaway for growers and crop advisor is if you see suspicious symptoms in cucurbits, ask the lab to test specifically for this virus. One of the reasons why MNSV is so important from the diagnostic standpoint is that its spread involves more than one pathway. So a major transmission route is through the soil-associated fungal vector Leiolpidium bornovanum, and this virus-vector relationship can create disease complex that significantly affects cucurbit production. In addition, MNSV can also spread mechanically. That means through people, tools, trays, and contaminated plant material. And this can contribute to local spread, especially where sanitation is weak and where there is frequent handling of plants. Some sources also know that infected soil and water movement can help distribute the disease within production settings. MNSV can also be seed-borne, and low-level seed transmission can occur and become epidemiologically important in the presence of the fungal vector. And this mechanism is known as vector-assisted seed transmission. MNSV can produce a range of necrotic symptoms, and those symptoms can be different depending on the host, the strain, and the environmental conditions. The typical symptoms include chlorotic spots, as the one in the image, that are still quite subtle. These chlorotic spots later enlarge into brown necrotic lesions on leaves, necrotic striking or spotting on stems, and can cause necrosis around the crown. In susceptible cucurbits, the virus can also be associated with wilt, reduced vigor, fruit quality problems, and in some situations, severe decline or collapse. It's also worth noting that cooler temperatures can increase symptom severity, and that matters because symptoms may become more obvious under certain production conditions than others, and growers may see different expression of the disease from season to season. The challenge, of course, with these symptoms I described they are not unique to MNSV. Other cucurbit viruses and even some bacterial or fungal diseases can produce similar necrotic spotting and stem symptoms. So suspicious symptoms should trigger testing rather than a visual diagnosis. Visual symptoms are not enough to confirm MNSV. As I mentioned, cucurbit virus often overlap in appearance and mixed infections are common. For that reason, it's important to rely on assays for the confirmation of MNSV, and some of the assays that are available are immunostrips, techniques as ELISA or RT-PCR. In the case of immunostrips, I want to share my experience. It's important to test the roots. I have tested foliage and gotten a weak reaction. When I tested roots, I got a strong reaction. So if you are suspecting MNSV, it's important to collect good foliage samples, but also include roots. Given the fungal vector, it's common to have a high titer of the virus on the roots. So it's important to take that into account. When we think about epidemiology, the central issue is introduction plus persistence, and risk increases when we have like infected seed and contaminated soil or the fungal vector entering a production system. And once that happens, the virus-vector relationship can support continuous disease pressure in the crop. MNSV is particularly concerning because it can persist in association with its vector and in soil. So that means that management becomes harder once the pathogen is established. And one of the reasons why prevention and containment it's more effective than trying to react when symptoms are widespread. Environmental conditions also matter. Moisture and root zone conditions can influence the vector activity and the disease spread. As I shared, cooler temperatures can increase symptom severity. So the expression and the impact of MNSV are not just about the virus itself, but also about the production environment. A high-risk scenario would be the introduction of contaminated seed in a system where the root zone conditions support the vector. And in that situation, disease can become established before it's fully recognized. Management starts with exclusion, and because MNSV is seedborne, using cleat seed from reputable suppliers, it's one of the most important steps available to growers. Next, focus on limiting the movement of contaminated material. Remove symptomatic plants, avoid moving soil, water, trays, tools, and equipment from suspect areas into clean areas. Strong sanitation is important because mechanical spread and contaminated production materials can contribute to the disease movement. And management efforts may also include practices aimed to reduce the vector and lowering the risk of pathogen carryover in infested production systems. And my closing takeaway message is this: prevent the introduction whenever possible, pay attention to suspicious necrotic symptoms, and confirm with laboratory testing before making management decisions. MNSV may not be the only virus in the field, and because mixed infections and symptoms overlap, diagnosis is the foundation of effective management plan. And if you remember only 3 things of this presentation, remember this. Start with clean seed. Do not diagnose MNSV by symptoms alone. And also think about the roots as well as the foliage when you evaluate risk and management options. And with this, concluding my presentation. Thanks again.